The morning mist clung to the forest floor like secrets waiting to be whispered. Seraphina Morrow pressed her back against the ancient oak tree, her heart hammering as she watched the pack patrol pass mere feet from her hiding spot. The suppressant herbs she'd consumed at dawn were working, masking her true omega scent beneath the carefully crafted illusion of beta neutrality. "Sarah, where are you?" Her younger sister Celeste's voice carried through the trees, sweet and melodic as always. Everything about Celeste was perfect. Her golden hair that caught sunlight like spun silk. Her emerald eyes that sparkled with innocence. Her beta status that made her valuable without making her vulnerable. Seraphina closed her ears, willing her racing pulse to slow. If anyone discovered what she truly was, the life she'd built would crumble. Omegas were rare, precious, and completely at the mercy of alphas who saw them as breeding stock rather than individuals. She'd watched it happen to her cousin Mira, mated off at 18 to an alpha twice her age, reduced to nothing more than a vessel for his heir. Never. She would rather die than live that fate. "There you are." Celeste appeared through the undergrowth, her cheeks flushed from running. "Papa is looking for you. He says, we need to discuss my arrangement." The word hung between them like a blade. Seraphina's stomach twisted with dread and fury. Their father, Beta Marcus Marrow, had been negotiating this alliance for months. Alpha Thorne of the Shadow Pack needed a mate to secure his bloodline, and the Morrow family needed protection. It was a transaction disguised as tradition. "Celeste," Seraphina began, stepping closer to her sister. "You don't have to do this. There are other ways." "Don't." Celeste's eyes flashed with uncharacteristic steel. "I've made my choice. Alphorn may be intimidating, but this marriage will secure our pack's future, our family's future. Sometimes we must sacrifice our dreams for something greater." "But what about love?" Seraphina wanted to scream. What about choice? What about the way Celeste's hands trembled whenever Alpha Thorne's name was mentioned? Or how she'd been having nightmares since the engagement was announced? Instead, she nodded because arguing would draw attention, and attention would lead to questions she couldn't answer. Questions about why she, the older sister, wasn't being offered instead. Questions that would unravel the careful web of lies she'd spent 5 years weaving. "I understand," she whispered, the words tasting like ash on her tongue. But as they walked back toward the pack house, Seraphina's mind was already working. The mating ceremony was in 3 days. 3 days to find a way to save her sister without destroying herself. 3 days to perform a miracle. She had no idea that their attempts to save Celeste would instead damn them both in the most beautifully catastrophic way possible. Chapter 1. The Mask I Wear. 3 days until the ceremony. Seraphina stood before her bedroom mirror, methodically applying the scent-masking oil she'd perfected over the years. The mixture of pine bark, cedar shavings, and wolfsbane created the perfect beta signature. Strong enough to be noticed, neutral enough to be ignored. Seraphina. Her father's voice boomed through the pack house. "Training grounds now?" She grabbed her practice sword and sprinted downstairs, muscle memory guiding her movements. Beta Marcus Morrow stood in the courtyard, his weathered face stern as he watched pack members spar. At 52, he still moved with lethal grace. Every inch the seasoned warrior who'd earned his position through blood and skill rather than birthright. "You're late," he said without looking at her. "Apologies, Papa. I was making excuses." His steel gray eyes finally met hers. "Alpha Thorne arrives tomorrow to finalize the ceremony details. I need to know my daughters are prepared for what's coming." Seraphina's grip tightened on her sword hilt. "Celeste is ready. She's been training for this her whole life." "I'm not talking about Celeste." Marcus stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper that only she could hear. "I'm talking about you, daughter. About the secrets you think you're hiding." Ice flooded Seraphina's veins. Her father couldn't possibly know. She'd been so careful, so meticulous in maintaining her disguise. "I don't know what you mean," she managed, proud that her voice remained steady. Marcus smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You think I don't notice how the unmated males avoid you? How you never show any interest in finding a mate yourself? You think I don't see the way you flinch whenever we discuss Omega rights and protections?" "Papa, I know what you are, Seraphina." The words hit her like physical blows. "I've known for years. The question is, what am I going to do about it?" The training ground seemed to spin around her. Other pack members continued their exercises, oblivious to the fact that her entire world was crumbling. She'd been living a lie. And now the one person whose protection she needed most had discovered the truth. "The ceremony," she whispered. "Will proceed as planned," Marcus finished. with Celeste as the bride, but afterward things will change. Alpha Thorne will need to know about our family's full assets, including you. You can't, the words tore from her throat like a howl. Papa, please. You know what happens to megas and political alliances. I'll be traded away like livestock. You'll be valued as you should be, he corrected. But his tone had softened slightly. Omegas are precious, Sarah, rare. With the right alpha, you could have power beyond your imagining. I don't want power. I want freedom. Freedom is a luxury we can't afford. Marcus turned away, dismissing her. Prepare yourself, daughter. After the ceremony, everything changes. Seraphina stood frozen as her father walked away, her carefully constructed life dissolving around her. In 2 days, she would lose everything. Her disguise, her autonomy, her sister. Unless she found a way to stop the ceremony entirely. Chapter 2. A Sister's Sacrifice. That evening, Seraphina found Celeste in their mother's old garden, sitting among the moonflowers that bloomed only under starlight. Their mother, Luna Elena, had planted them before her death 10 years ago. For the daughters who will bloom when their time comes, she used to say. The flowers are beautiful tonight, Seraphina said softly, settling beside her sister on the stone bench. Celeste nodded, her fingers tracing the silvery petals. Mama always said they reminded her of hope, how something beautiful could grow in darkness. Celeste, we need to talk about the ceremony about Alpha Thorne. Her sister's hand stilled. What's there to discuss? The arrangements are made. The contracts were signed. But are you made? Seraphina turned to face her fully. Are you ready to spend your life with a man you barely know? To bear his children? To leave everything you love behind? Love is a luxury, Celeste replied, echoing their father's words. But her voice cracked on the last word, revealing the fear she'd been hiding. Besides, it's not like I have other options. I'm 23, Sarah. Most she-wolves my age are already mated with pups. If I don't take this opportunity, you'll find someone else. Someone who loves you for who you are, not what alliances you can provide. Celeste laughed bitterly. Like you have, Sarah, you're 25 and haven't shown interest in a single male. At least I'm trying to fulfill my purpose. If only you knew, Seraphina thought. If only you knew that my lack of interest isn't choice, it's survival. What if I told you there was another way? She said carefully. What if you didn't have to go through with this? What are you talking about? Seraphina took a deep breath, knowing she was about to cross a line she could never uncross. What if the ceremony was disrupted? What if something happened that made the alliance impossible? Celeste's eyes widened. Sarah, no. Whatever you're thinking, don't. Papa would never forgive you. The pack would never forgive you. And Alpha Thorne, she shuddered. The stories I've heard about what happens to those who cross him. I'm not afraid of Alpha Thorne. Well, you should be. Celeste grabbed her sister's hands, her own trembling. He's not just any alpha, Sarah. He's the most powerful werewolf in 3 territories. His pack controls the mountain passes, the trade routes, everything. He could destroy us with a word. Or he could find someone else to marry. Someone who actually wants to be his mate, like who? Celeste's voice rose with hysteria. What other family would sacrifice their daughter for our protection? What other pack would risk allying with us against the rogue threats from the north? Seraphina almost said it, then almost revealed the truth that had been burning inside her chest for years. But the words stuck in her throat, trapped by 25 years of conditioning and fear. Instead, she pulled her sister into a fierce embrace. I love you, Celeste, more than anything in this world, and I won't let you sacrifice your happiness for political gain. Sarah. Celeste pulled back, searching her sister's face. Promise me you won't do anything stupid. Promise me you'll let this happen. Seraphina smiled, the expression feeling foreign on her lips. I promise I'll do what's best for everyone. It wasn't technically a lie. But as Celeste relaxed against her, Seraphina began planning the most dangerous gamble of her life. Tomorrow, when Alpha Thorne arrived for the pre-ceremony negotiations, she would find a way to speak with him privately. She would convince him that Celeste was unsuitable, that the alliance was doomed to fail. And if that didn't work, well, she'd cross that bridge when she came to it. What she didn't know was that bridges once burned often left you stranded on the other side. Chapter 3. The Alpha's Arrival. The Shadowmere convoy arrived at dawn, a parade of black SUVs that gleamed like predators in the morning light. Seraphina watched from her bedroom window as the vehicles dissed their passengers, warriors whose very presence seemed to make the air thicker, dangerous. And then he stepped out. Alpha Thorne Blackwood was not what she had expected. The stories painted him as a monster, scarred, brutal, ancient beyond his years. Instead, she saw a man who couldn't be more than 30, with dark hair that caught the sunlight and shoulders broad enough to carry the weight of his reputation. He moved with liquid grace, every step calculated and purposeful. Even from a distance, she could feel the power radiating from him like heat waves. This was what a true alpha looked like. Not the pretenders and wannabes she'd known, but something primal and untamed that made her wolf stir restlessly in her chest. "He's beautiful," Celeste whispered, appearing beside her at the window. "And terrifying." "Beauty doesn't make up for cruelty," Seraphina replied, but her eyes remained fixed on the alpha below. Something about him seemed familiar, as if she'd seen him in dreams she couldn't quite remember. "Sarah." Celeste's voice was small, frightened. "I've been thinking about what you said last night about disrupting the ceremony. Maybe, there's some truth to what you're suggesting." Seraphina tore her gaze from the window. "What do you mean?" "I had a dream last night about the ceremony. It was violent. I saw blood on the altar screaming, the pack scattered and broken." Celeste shivered despite the warm morning air. What if it was a vision? What if the moon goddess is trying to warn us? "Dreams aren't always prophetic," Seraphina said gently, though her own sleep had been plagued by strange visions, flashes of golden eyes, and a mate bond that pulled at her very soul. "But what if this one is?" Celeste grabbed her sister's arm. "What if going through with this ceremony brings destruction to our pack? What if I'm not supposed to be his mate?" Before Seraphina could respond, their father's voice echoed through the house. "Daughters, come greet our guests." They descended the stairs to find the main hall filled with shadow mere pack members. The visiting wolves were larger than their own packmates, their scents sharp with dominance and barely contained violence. At their center stood Alpha Thorne, his golden eyes scanning the room with predatory assessment. "Alpha Thorne." Marcus stepped forward with a respectful bow. "Welcome to Crescent Moon territory. May I present my daughters, Celeste, your intended mate, and Seraphina, my eldest." Celeste curtsied gracefully, but Seraphina noticed how her hands trembled. When the Alpha's gaze fell on her sister, something flickered across his expression. Confusion, perhaps disappointment, but when those golden eyes shifted to Seraphina herself, lightning, pure electric connection that made her gasp audibly. For a moment that stretched like eternity, she felt something inside her chest pull toward him with magnetic force. Her carefully suppressed omega nature stirred, recognizing something her conscious mind refused to acknowledge. "An honor," Alpha Thorne said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through her bones. But his eyes remained fixed on Seraphina, not Celeste. "I look forward to getting to know your family better." The formal introductions continued, but Seraphina barely heard them. Every instinct she possessed was screaming warnings or perhaps invitations. She couldn't tell the difference anymore. As the adults discussed ceremony logistics, she noticed Celeste growing paler by the moment. Her sister kept glancing between Alpha Thorne and the door as if calculating escape routes. "The ceremony will begin at sunset tomorrow," Marcus was saying. "During the full moon, as tradition demands, the pack has been preparing for weeks." "Excellent," Alpha Thorne's response was polite but distant. "I trust everything will proceed smoothly." But his eyes found Seraphina's again. And this time she saw something that made her blood run cold and hot simultaneously. Recognition, as if he knew exactly what she was hiding beneath her carefully constructed disguise. As if he could smell the truth she'd spent 5 years hiding. "If you'll excuse me," she said quickly, backing toward the exit. "I have duties to attend to." She fled before anyone could respond, her heart hammering as she escaped into the forest. Behind her, she could swear she heard footsteps following. But when she turned, the path was empty. The ceremony was tomorrow night. She had less than 24 hours to save her sister and preserve her own secret. What she didn't realize was that some secrets were meant to be revealed. Chapter 4. The Fateful Fall. The sacred clearing had been transformed into something from ancient legend. Hundreds of candles created pools of golden light, while moonflowers and silver ribbons adorned every surface. The pack's finest musicians played haunting melodies that seemed to call directly to the wolf spirits within each attendee. Seraphina crouched behind a massive boulder at the clearing's edge, her heart hammering as she watched the ceremony preparations. She'd spent the day trying unsuccessfully to speak privately with Alpha Thorne, but he'd been surrounded by advisors and warriors at every moment. Now, with the ritual already beginning, She was down to her most desperate plan: create enough chaos to stop the ceremony entirely. The pack members formed concentric circles around the central altar, where Alpha Thorne stood in formal ceremonial garb. His black leather coat was embroidered with silver runes that seemed to glow in the moonlight, and a silver torque around his throat marked him as an alpha seeking his mate. He looked like something from legends, powerful, dangerous, and utterly magnificent. "Where is the bride?" Elder Morrison's voice carried across the clearing. Seraphina's stomach dropped. Where was Celeste? She should have been led to the altar by now, dressed in the traditional white gown that had been worn by marrow brides for generations. "The bride approaches," someone called from the forest path. And there she was, Celeste in flowing white silk, flanked by their cousins as ceremonial guards. But even from a distance, Seraphina could see her sister's terror. Celeste's face was pale as moonlight, her steps mechanical as if she were walking to her execution rather than her mating. The crowd murmured appreciatively as the bridal party entered the sacred circle. Elder Morrison began the ancient chants, calling upon the moon goddess to bless the union and guide the mate bond formation. "Alpha Thorne, Blackwood of Shadow," the elder ended. "Do you come before the moon goddess seeking your true mate?" "I do," Alpha Thorne replied, but his voice lacked conviction. His golden eyes swept the crowd restlessly, as if searching for something or someone else entirely. "Celeste Morrow of Crescent Moon, do you come before the moon goddess prepared to accept your destined mate?" Celeste opened her mouth to respond, but no sound emerged. She swayed on her feet, looking as if she might faint. This was it, Seraphina's moment to act. She crept closer to the ceremony circle, keeping to the shadows cast by the ancient oak trees. Her plan was simple: create a distraction during the moon blessing ritual when everyone's attention would be focused skyward. In the chaos, she would convince Celeste to run while she dealt with the political fallout. Let the moon blessing begin. Elder Morrison raised his staff toward the full moon, hanging like a silver coin above the clearing. The pack members lifted their faces skyward, their voices joining in the ancient chant that would call down the moon goddess's power. This was the most sacred moment of any mating ceremony, when lunar energy would confirm or deny the proposed bond. Seraphina took a deep breath and stepped from the shadows, intending to shout a challenge that would stop the proceedings. But as she opened her mouth, her foot caught on a protruding tree root. Time slowed to a crawl as she pitched forward, her arms windmilling frantically as she tried to regain her balance. The pack's chanting faltered as heads turned toward the commotion. She crashed through the inner circle, scattering ceremonial candles and sending up showers of sparks. "No!" she cried out, still falling, still fighting gravity. "Stop the ceremony, Celeste." And then she slammed directly into Alpha Thorne's broad chest. The impact drove them both to the ground, her body sprawling across his as shocked gasps echoed through the clearing. For a moment, they lay tangled together on the altar steps, his powerful arms instinctively wrapping around her to cushion her fall. Then their eyes met, and everything changed. The mate bond hit like lightning, striking twice in the same place. Power coursed between them, electric and undeniable, as her carefully suppressed omega scent exploded outward in waves of honeysuckle and rain. His golden eyes flared wide with recognition and hunger as her true nature was finally catastrophically revealed. "Mate," he growled, the word rumbling through his chest and into hers. The pack erupted in chaos. Shouts of confusion, anger, and disbelief filled the air as pack members realized what they were witnessing. The arranged bride stood forgotten as her sister lay in the arms of her intended groom, their mate bond blazing like a beacon for all to see. "Impossible," Elder Morrison breathed. "The Omega, she's been hiding," but Seraphina barely heard the uproar. She was drowning in Alpha Thorne's gaze, in the overwhelming rightness of being in his arms, in the way her wolf was singing with joy for the first time in her life. "Found you," he whispered, his voice for her alone. "I've been searching for you for so long." And despite everything, the ruined ceremony, the shocked pack, the sister she'd meant to save, Seraphina felt something inside her chest settle into place like a puzzle piece finding its home. She'd fallen into disaster. But perhaps for the first time in her life, she'd also fallen into exactly where she belonged. What do you think happens next? Have you ever had a moment where everything changed in an instant? Let me know in the comments below. I love hearing your thoughts. Chapter 5. Pack Reaction and Family Confrontation. The Pack House Great Hall had never felt smaller. Seraphina sat rigidly in a wooden chair surrounded by a semicircle of angry faces that included her father, Elder Morrison, and representatives from both packs. Alpha Thorne stood behind her like a dark guardian, his presence both comforting and terrifying. "Explain this," Marcus demanded, his voice cold as winter steel. "Explain how my daughter has been deceiving us for years." "Papa," Seraphina began, but Heck cut her off with a sharp gesture. "You will address me as Beta Marcus. You forfeited the right to call me father." The words hit her like physical blows, an Omega hiding among us for 5 years. "Do you have any idea what you've done? What have you risked?" Elder Morrison stepped forward, his weathered face grave. "Omega deception is a serious crime, child. It undermines pack hierarchy, threatens bloodline security, and violates the moon goddess's natural order. The punishment is traditionally exile or forced submission training." Over my dead body, Alpha Thorne's voice cut through the room like a blade. "She is my mate. Anyone who threatens her threatens me." "Your mate?" Marcus laughed bitterly. "Your mate was promised to be Celeste. The contracts are signed. The alliances agreed upon. One sister cannot simply be substituted for another. The moon goddess determines mates, not human contracts," Thorne replied calmly, "and she has clearly chosen Seraphina." Seraphina found her voice at last. "Where is Celeste? Is she?" "Your sister is recovering from the shock," one of her cousins said quietly. "She's relieved, actually, but also terrified about what this means for the Pack Alliance." The weight of what she'd done crashed down on her fully. In trying to save Celeste, she'd potentially doomed their entire pack. Without the Shadow Mirror Alliance, they were vulnerable to the rogue attacks that had been increasing along their borders. "The Alliance can still proceed," Alpha Thorne said, as if reading her thoughts. "Through the mate bond with Seraphina, she is Marcus's daughter, making her an acceptable bride for political purposes." "She's an Omega who's been living a lie," Elder Morrison protested. "How can we trust anything she says or does?" "Because," a new voice spoke from the doorway, "she's been protecting herself the only way she knew how." Everyone turned to see Luna Elena's older sister, Aunt Moira, entering the hall. At 70, she was one of the pack's most respected elders and the only person who dared to challenge Morrison's authority. "Moira," Marcus warned, "this is not your concern. A young Omega being threatened with forced mating." "It absolutely is my concern." Moira moved to stand beside Seraphina's chair. "I knew what she was from the moment she presented. I also knew what would happen to her if others discovered the truth." "You knew?" Marcus's face flushed with rage. "You helped her deceive us?" "I helped her survive," Moira replied firmly. "Just as I would any young woman facing a future as breeding stock for ambitious alphas." Alpha stepped forward. "If I may, none of this changes the fundamental situation. Seraphina is my mate. I intend to claim her with or without pack approval. The alliance between our territories will proceed as planned." "And if she refuses you," Elder Morrison challenged. "Omega Shave been known to reject mates who discover them through deception." All eyes turned to Seraphina. The moment stretched like a held breath as she realized everyone was waiting for her to speak. Her entire future and her packed security hung on her next words. She looked up at Alpha Thorne, studying his face. In his golden eyes, she saw hunger. Yes, but also something that looked like understanding. "I need time to think." "Time is a luxury we don't have," her father said harshly. "The contracts must be fulfilled by the next full moon or the alliance dissolves." "That gives us 4 weeks. 4 weeks, Alpha Thorne agreed. "But Seraphina will spend that time at Shadowmere learning about her new pack and her duties as Luna." "I haven't agreed to anything yet," Seraphina protested. "But you will," Thorne said with quiet confidence. "Because you feel it too. The pull, the rightness. Fighting a true mate bond only brings pain, little Omega." The endearment sent shivers down her spine. Part fear, part excitement. He was right about the bond. Even now, sitting apart from him, she could feel an invisible cord connecting them, tugging at her very soul. "This is highly irregular," Elder Morrison muttered. "These are irregular times," Aunt Moira replied. "The moon goddess works in mysterious ways." As the adults continued debating the logistics of her future, Seraphina closed her eyes and tried to center herself. Everything she'd known, everything she'd planned, lay in ruins around her. But perhaps this was what was meant to happen all along. Perhaps some disasters were actually disguised blessings. Chapter 6, Alpha Thorne's Struggle. Later that night, Seraphina found Alpha Thorne on the Packus's rear balcony, staring out at the moonlit forest. He changed from his ceremonial garb into simple jeans and a dark sweater that emphasized his powerful build. Somehow he looked more dangerous in casual clothes. Less like a political figure and more like the predator he truly was. Couldn't sleep either, she said softly, stepping outside. He turned, and the hunger in his eyes made her breath catch. Sleep is impossible when your mate is under the same roof but not in your bed. Thorne, call me by my given name, please. His voice was rough, with barely contained emotion. I've been Alpha Thorne to everyone for so long, I'd forgotten what it felt like to want someone to know me as just Thorne. She moved to stand beside him at the railing, careful to maintain distance between them. Thorne, then this is all happening very fast. Yesterday I was nobody special, and now you're my Luna, the most important person in my world. He turned to face her fully. Do you know how long I've been searching for you? Searching for me specifically, or just searching for Amate? You specifically? His answer surprised her. I've been dreaming about you for months. Your scent, your laugh, the way your eyes flash when you're angry. I thought I was going mad. Seraphina's heart raced. That's impossible. We've never met before today, haven't we? He stepped closer. Close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. Think, Seraphina. Have you been having dreams too? Visions of golden eyes and strong arms. Of running through forests with someone who felt like home. She had. For months, she'd been waking from dreams that left her aching with longing for something she couldn't name. Dreams of a powerful presence that made her feel safe and desired and whole. How is that possible? She whispered. Mate bonds sometimes manifest before the physical meeting, he explained. Especially with true mates, the moon goddess was preparing us for each other. But you were supposed to mate Celeste. The contracts were a mistake. His voice was firm. I knew from the moment I agreed to them that something felt wrong. I thought it was pre-mating nerves, but now I understand. My wolf was trying to tell me that Celeste wasn't my mate. Then why didn't you call off the ceremony? Thorne's expression darkened. Because my pack needs this alliance as much as yours does. We're facing threats from multiple directions. Rogue wolves from the north, vampire covens from the east, and hunters who've been getting bolder. I couldn't afford to break the engagement without a compelling alternative. And now you have one. Now I have everything I've ever wanted. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his fingers traced the line of her jaw with reverent gentleness. The question is, what do you want, Seraphina? If politics and pack alliances didn't matter, if it was just you and me, what would you choose? The honest answer terrified her. She wanted to lean into his touch, to let him hold her and protect her and claim her completely. The mate bond was singing in her veins, urging her to surrender to the connection between them. But a lifetime of hiding, of protecting herself, couldn't be overcome in a single night. I don't know, she said finally. I've spent so many years hiding what I am. I'm not sure I remember how to be myself anymore. Then let me help you remember. His thumb brushed across her lower lip and she shivered. Come to Shadowmere with me. Give us a chance to know each other without the pressure of pack politics and family expectations. And if I decide I can't do this, if I choose to reject the mate bond, pain flashed across his features, quickly hidden, then I'll let you go. It will kill me, but I'll respect your choice. The sincerity in his voice undid her. Here was an alpha powerful enough to take whatever he wanted, promising to let her choose her own fate. Okay, she said quietly. I'll come to Shadowmere, but I'm not promising anything beyond that. It's enough. Relief flooded his expression. More than enough. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the moon travel across the star-studded sky. Finally, Thorne spoke again. There's something else you should know, he said carefully. About a mate so urgently. It's not just about alliances or bloodlines. What do you mean? There's an old law in our pack. If an alpha doesn't mate by his 30th birthday, he can be challenged for leadership. My birthday is in 6 weeks. Seraphina's eyes widened. You're 29 and 11 months, he confirmed grimly. Which means this mate bond isn't just convenient, it's essential. Without it, everything I've worked to build could be destroyed. The weight of responsibility settled on her shoulders like a lead blanket. It wasn't just her happiness at stake or even her pack's security. An entire territory full of wolves depended on her decision. No pressure, she said weakly. Thorne's mouth quirked in a small smile. I seem to specialize in impossible situations. But Seraphina, whatever you decide, know that my feelings for you are real. Politics aside, you're the other half of my soul. As he spoke, the mate bond pulsed between them like a second heartbeat. Despite all her fears and reservations, she couldn't deny the truth echoing in her very bones. Whatever happened next, there was no going back to the life she'd known. For better or worse, she was bound to this powerful, dangerous, impossibly compelling alpha. And deep down beneath all her terror, a small voice whispered that maybe, just maybe, that was exactly where she belonged. Chapter 7. Seraphina's internal battle and growing attraction. Shadow territory took Seraphina's breath away. The mountain pack's land stretched across soaring peaks and deep valleys, with the pack house itself built into a cliff face that overlooked an alpine lake. Everything here spoke of ancient power and wild beauty. From the massive timber beams carved with protective runes to the floor to ceiling windows that framed impossible views. "Welcome home," Thorne said softly as they stood on the main terrace, having arrived that morning after a 6-hour drive through increasingly dramatic landscape. "It's not my home yet," she reminded him, but the words felt hollow. Something inside her chest had settled the moment they'd crossed into Shadowmere territory, as if her wolf recognized this place as a sanctuary. But it could be. He moved to stand beside her at the stone railing. "If you'll let it." Below them, pack members went about their daily activities with an efficiency and contentment that impressed her. The Shadowmere wolves were larger and more powerful than her birth pack, but they moved with less tension, less fear. Children played in the courtyards while their parents worked, and she could hear laughter echoing off the stone walls. "They seem happy," she observed. "A pack reflects its leadership," Thorne replied. "Happy wolves are productive wolves. Productive wolves build strong territories, and strong territories produce powerful alphas. Strong territories protect those who need protection." His voice carried conviction. "That's what matters to me. Keeping my people safe and free to live their lives as they choose." Over the next few days, Seraphina began to see what he meant. The Shadow Pack operated more like a small city than a traditional pack hierarchy. Wolves pursued their interests and talents, contributing to the whole without being constrained by rigid rank structures. She met teachers and artists, warriors and healers, engineers and farmers, all working together in harmonious purpose. "Your pack is different," she told Thorne one evening as they walked through the pack's extensive gardens. They'd established this routine over the past week. Evening walks where they could talk without the pressure of pack duties or political concerns. "Different how?" He plucked a late-blooming rose from a nearby bush and offered it to her, his fingers brushing hers as she accepted it. "Less rigid. In me birth pack, Omegas would never be allowed to choose their own paths. Here, I've met Omega doctors, teachers, even a warrior who serves on your council." "Strength comes in many forms," Thorne said simply. "I found that forcing wolves into predetermined roles based solely on their biology is a waste of potential. Better to let each person discover their own gifts." "Is that why you're being so patient with me? Letting me discover my own gifts?" He stopped walking and turned to face her, his golden eyes serious in the twilight. "I'm being patient with you because forced bonds never work. I want you to choose me, Seraphina. Not because you have to, but because you want to." The sincerity in his voice made her chest tight with emotion. Every day spent in his company revealed new layers to his character. His dry humor, his fierce protectiveness of pack members, the way he listened to problems with genuine attention and crafted solutions that served everyone's needs. "What if I can't?" she whispered. "What if I'm too damaged by years of hiding to ever fully trust someone with that kind of power over me?" "Then we'll figure it out together." He stepped closer, close enough that she could see flecks of amber in his golden irises. "But Seraphina, you're not as damaged as you think. The woman I've come to know this week is strong, compassionate, and incredibly brave. She sees problems and finds ways to solve them. She puts others' needs before her own. She has the soul of a true Luna. I don't feel like Luna material. The best leaders rarely do." His thumb traced along her cheekbone, sending shivers through her entire body. "They're too busy thinking about how to serve others to realize their own worth." The mate bond hummed between them, stronger each day they spent together. What had started as an electric shock of recognition was deepening into something more complex. Genuine affection, growing trust, and an attraction that left her breathless whenever he was near. "Thorne," she began, then stopped, unsure how to voice what she was feeling. "What is it, sweetheart?" The endearment made her heart skip. I'm scared. Not of you specifically, but of this. Of how much I'm starting to want something I've convinced myself I could never have. What do you want? His voice was soft, encouraging. I want to wake up next to someone who sees me as more than my Omega status. I want to build something lasting with a partner who respects my mind as well as my body. She took a shaky breath. I want to stop running from who I am and start embracing it. And do you think could you want those things with me? Instead of answering with words, she rose on her tiptoes and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, but when he groaned and pulled her closer, it deepened into something desperate and claiming. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Thorne rested his forehead against hers. That was either a very good sign, he said roughly, or the cruelest thing you've ever done to me. Good sign, she managed. Definitely a good sign. But even as she said it, doubt crept in, because wanting something and being brave enough to claim it were two very different things. Chapter 8. External Threats and Pack Challenges. The attack came at dawn 3 days later. Seraphina woke to the sound of howls. Not the joyful morning calls of pack members, but the urgent warning cries that meant danger. She threw on clothes and raced to the window to see Shadowmere warriors racing toward the eastern border, their faces grim with purpose. Stay inside, Thorne commanded as he burst into her room, already dressed in tactical gear. Rogs have breached our territory. My beta will keep you safe while we deal with them. How many? She asked, her heart racing with fear for him. Too many, his expression washered as granite. This isn't a random attack, Seraphina. Someone organized this. Someone who knows our patrol schedules and defensive positions. You think it's connected to our mating bond? I think there are wolves who would benefit from seeing both our packs weakened. He cupped her face in his hands, his touch gentle despite the urgency. Promise me you'll stay safe. I can't focus on the battle if I'm worried about you. I promise. But Thorne, come back to him. Always, he vowed, then kissed her fiercely before heading out to war. The next several hours passed in agonizing slowness. Seraphina paced her room like a caged animal, listening to the distant sounds of battle and fighting every instinct that urged her to shift and join the defense of her new territory. Beta Marcus Thorne's second, not to be confused with her father, kept her updated as much as possible, but the news was troubling. Rogues, at least, he reported during one visit. All of them enhanced somehow. Stronger, faster, more resistant to injury than natural wolves should be. Enhanced how? We don't know yet, but Alpha Thorne suspects supernatural interference. This feels like magic, not just rogue desperation. By midday, the tide had turned in Shadow's favor, but at a cost. 7 pack members were injured, 2 critically. The pack house's medical wing filled with wounded warriors, while healers worked frantically to save lives. I can help, Seraphina told Beta Marcus as she watched the organized chaos from the hallway. I have medical training. Alpha's orders were to keep you safe. Alpha's orders were made before his pack started bleeding, she interrupted firmly. I'm not going to sit in my room while people suffer. Either you let me help or I'll find my own way to be useful. The beta studied her for a long moment, then nodded. The healers can use all the assistance they can get. For the next several hours, Seraphina lost herself in the urgent work of triage and treatment. Her hands moved steadily as she cleaned wounds, administered medications, and offered comfort to injured warriors. The Omega instincts she'd suppressed for years, the drive to nurture and heal, finally found their outlet. You're a natural at this, observed Dr. Sarah Chen, the pack's head healer, as they worked side by side to stabilize a warrior with massive claw marks across his chest. Have you considered medical training? I've always been interested, but Omegas in my birth pack weren't encouraged to pursue careers. Well, you're not in your birth pack anymore, Dr. Chen said with a smile. If you decide to stay, I'd be honored to sponsor your formal training. The casual assumption that she belonged here, that she had a future worth planning, sent warmth flooding through Seraphina's chest. For the first time in years, she could envision a life where she wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. When Thorne finally returned covered in blood and exhaustion, but magnificently alive, he found her in the medical wing bandaging a young warrior's arm. You should be resting, he said, appearing at her side. So should you. She looked him over critically, noting several cuts and what looked like claw marks on his shoulder. Sit down and let me check those wounds. Seraphina Alpha's orders, she said firmly, using his own authority against him. His mouth quirked in a tired smile as he submitted to her ministrations. Bossy Omega, stubborn Alpha. But her hands were gentle as she cleaned his cuts and applied healing salves. How bad was it, really? Bad enough to send a message, he said grimly. This wasn't random, sweetheart. Someone wanted to test our defenses. See how we'd respond to a coordinated attack. Any idea who? Several suspects. There are packs that would benefit from seeing Shadowmere weakened, especially now that we're forging new alliances. His eyes met hers. Your father's pack included. Seraphina's hand still. You think my pack organized this? I think your father is under pressure from other sources. The engagement between you and me has shifted regional power balances. Some wolves aren't happy about that. The implications hit her like a physical blow. By accepting the mate bond, she hadn't just changed her own life. She'd potentially painted a target on both their packs. This is my fault, she whispered. No. Thorne's voice was firm. This is the fault of wolves who think they can use violence to control others' choices. You're not responsible for their actions. But as they worked together to help the wounded, Seraphina couldn't shake the feeling that more challenges lay ahead. The mate bond that had seemed like a gift was also a liability. One that their enemies would exploit if given the chance. The question was, would their growing connection be strong enough to weather whatever storms were coming? Chapter 9, Final Confrontation and Acceptance. The confrontation came exactly 3 weeks after the rogue attack in the form of a formal challenge delivered by Marcus Marrow. Her father, along with Elder Morrison and a contingent of Crescent Moon warriors. I invoke the right of pack dissolution, Marcus announced as he stood in Shadow's great hall, his voice carrying to every corner of the massive room. My daughter was coerced into an unsuitable mating through supernatural manipulation. The alliance between our packs is null and void. Seraphina stood beside Thorne's chair, her hand resting on his shoulder in a gesture of support and unity. Over the past 3 weeks, their bond had deepened beyond mere attraction into something approaching true partnership. She'd found her place in Shadow's hierarchy, working with Dr. Chen to establish new healing protocols while also serving as Thorne's advisor on diplomatic matters. Supernatural manipulation. Thorne's voice was dangerously calm. Please elaborate. Beta Marrow. Omega bonds can be artificially induced through scent manipulation and psychological conditioning. Elder Morrison spoke up, pulling a scroll from his robes. We have documentation proving that such techniques have been used throughout history to create false mate bonds. False mate bonds that conveniently appear exactly when your political alliance is threatened. Dr. Chen stood from her, seat among the Pack Council. How remarkably coincidental. The moon goddess does not make mistakes. Marcus continued, ignoring the interruption. If Seraphina were truly meant to be Alpha Thorne's mate, she would have recognized him immediately upon his arrival, not during a disrupted ceremony. Actually, a new voice spoke from the hall's entrance. That's exactly how true mate bonds often manifest during times of stress or emotional upheaval. Everyone turned to see a woman entering the hall, tall, elegant, with silver hair that seemed to catch and hold moonlight despite the daytime hour. Power radiated from her in waves that made even the strongest alphas step back respectfully. Oracle Melania. Thorne rose from his seat, bowing deeply. We are honored by your presence. The Oracle, one of only 3 in the entire werewolf world, moved to the center of the hall with fluid grace. Her pale blue eyes swept over the assembled wolves before settling on Seraphina. Child, she said gently. May I? Seraphina nodded, not entirely sure what she was agreeing to. The Oracle approached and placed cool hands on either side of her face. Energy flowed between them, ancient, knowing, absolutely certain. Ah, the Oracle breathed after a long moment. Yes, I see it clearly now. See what? Marcus demanded. The truth your daughter has been carrying. The Oracle turned to address the entire hall. Seraphina Marrow is indeed the true mate of Alpha Thorne Blackwood. Their bond was written in starlight before either was born, woven into their very souls by the moon goddess herself. That's impossible, Elder Morrison protested. We would have sensed. You sensed exactly what the girl wanted. You toe sense? The Oracle interrupted. Her Omega nature was hidden not through deception, but through a rare gift. The ability to mask her true essence until the proper time. She is what we call a destined Omega, one whose purpose cannot be fulfilled until she meets her intended mate. Murmurs of awe and disbelief rippled through the hall. Destined Omegas were legends. Stories told to pups about mates so perfectly matched that the universe itself conspired to bring them together. Furthermore, the Oracle continued, the recent attacks on both territories are connected to those who would prevent this union. There are forces that fear what Alpha Thorne and Luna Seraphina will build together. A new model of pack leadership based on partnership rather than dominance. You're suggesting a conspiracy? Marcus's voice was skeptical but wavering. I'm stating a fact. The oracle's voice carried absolute authority. The choice before you is simple. Accept the moon goddess's will and allow this mating to proceed, or continue fighting fate and watch both your packs fall to those who exploit division. Silence stretched across the hall like a held breath. Finally, Seraphina stepped forward. Father, she said, her voice clear and strong, I understand your concerns. For 25 years, you protected me the only way you knew how. By preparing me for a world where omegas are seen as property. But that world is changing. Thorne has shown me what partnership looks like. What it means to be valued for my mind as well as my body. Seraphina, Marcus began. I'm not finished. Her voice carried new authority, the confidence of a woman who had found her place in the world. I choose Thorne, not because I have to, not because politics demand it, but because he is the other half of my soul. Because with him, I'm not just surviving. I'm becoming who I was always meant to be. She turned to face Thorne, her heart full of certainty. I accept the mate bond. I choose you, Thorne Blackwood. I choose us. The smile that spread across his face was radiant as sunrise. And I choose you, Seraphina Marrow, for now and always. As if responding to their declaration, power flared between them, visible to everyone in the hall as silver light that danced around their joined hands. The mate bond, fully accepted by both parties, blazed like a beacon of hope and promise. It is done, the oracle announced with satisfaction. The moon goddess's will has been fulfilled. Chapter 10, New Beginnings and True Mating. 6 months later, Seraphina stood in the same clearing where her world had changed forever. But this time, the space had been transformed for celebration rather than ceremony. The second mating ritual, this one by choice rather than arrangement, would be smaller, more intimate, surrounded only by those who truly supported their union. Ready? Thorne asked, appearing at her side in the simple black suit they'd chosen together. No elaborate ceremonial garb this time, just two people promising their lives to each other. More than ready, she replied, adjusting the crown of moonflowers in her hair, though I promise not to fall on you during this ceremony. I wouldn't mind if you did. His eyes sparkled with mischief. Best thing that ever happened to me. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind of change and growth. Seraphina had officially enrolled in advanced healing studies under Dr. Chen's guidance, while also working with Thorne to establish new policies for Omega rights across their territories. Their partnership had proven as effective in politics as it was in personal matters. She provided empathy and intuition while he contributed strategy and enforcement. The bride is glowing, Celeste observed, approaching with a genuine smile. Seraphina's sister had found her own happiness in the month since the disrupted ceremony. A gentle beta named David, who worked as a teacher and treated her like precious treasure. The bride is terrified, Seraphina confessed. What if I mess up the vows? Then you'll be perfectly human, Aunt Moira said warmly, joining their small group. The moon goddess doesn't require perfection, dear one. She requires authenticity. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold, the small gathering arranged itself in a circle around the altar. This time, there was no grand procession, no political pageantry, just family and friends witnessing two souls choosing each other. Dearly beloved, Oracle Melania began, having agreed to officiate this second ceremony. We gather tonight not to fulfill contracts or secure alliances, but to celebrate the triumph of love over fear, choice over obligation. The vows they'd written together were simple. Heartfelt promises to support each other's dreams, protect each other's vulnerabilities, and build a future worthy of the love they'd discovered. I, Seraphina, promise to stand beside you, not as your possession, but as your partner, she said, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her cheeks. To challenge you when you need wisdom, support you when you need strength, and love you even when you leave dirty socks on the bedroom floor. Laughter rippled through their gathered loved ones as Thorne grimaced theatrically. I, Thorne, promise to treasure not just your Omega nature, but every aspect of who you are. He replied to create space for your dreams to flourish, to defend your right to choose your own path, and to never ever leave dirty socks on the bedroom floor again. By the power of the moon goddess and the love that binds you, Oracle Melania declared, I pronounce you true mates now and forever. This time when they kissed, there was no shocking revelation, no chaos or confusion, just the sweet certainty of two people who had found their home in each other. Later, as the celebration wound down and guests drifted away, Seraphina and Thorne found themselves alone under the stars. Any regrets? he asked, pulling her close against his chest. Only one, she said seriously. His face fell slightly. What? I regret that I was too scared to fall into your arms sooner. She rose on her tiptoes to kiss his worried expression away. But I suppose some things are worth waiting for. All the best things are, he agreed, then swept her up in his arms with easy strength. Now, Luna Blackwood, shall we begin our happily ever after? I thought you'd never ask, Alpha Blackwood. As he carried her toward their future, toward the pack house that was now truly home, toward the life they would build together, toward all the adventures that awaited, Seraphina marveled at how a single moment of clumsiness had led to everything she'd never dared to dream. Sometimes the best things in life happened when you stopped trying to control everything and simply let yourself fall. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, there would be someone with strong shoulders waiting to catch you. The end. Thank you so much for listening to During the Mating Ceremony, I Fell on the Alpha's Strong Shoulders, shocking the entire pack. I hope you loved Seraphina and Thorne's journey as much as I enjoyed creating it for you. Before you go, I'd love to know, where in the world are you listening from? Drop a comment and let me know your location and tell me what you thought of this story.
Did you see the mate bond twist coming?
What was your favorite moment? Your engagement means everything to me here. If you enjoyed listening to this story, please hit the like button, share it with someone who'd love this, and subscribe to Nightbond Narratives and ring the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Tell me in the comments below which part of the world you are watching from. Also tell me which part of the story you like the most. Compilation of a video of an audiobook takes a lot of time and effort. So if you see any ambiguity, please ignore it. I hope you will appreciate my effort.